Доброго ранку. Перепрошуємо за деяку затримку, мали технічні неполадки.
Good morning, colleagues. Sorry for the delay for technical reasons. So now we'll listen to the spokesperson of the Ministry of Defense, Victoria Kushnir, the spokesman of the anti-terrorist operation, Leonid Matyukhin, will be on Skype, and Vladyslav Seleznyov, the spokesman for the general staff, will follow. Good morning, dear all. Yes, tomorrow the first Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Ivan Rusnak, will meet the ambassador of Norway in Ukraine, Mr. Jon Edvedal Fredriksen, and a group of Norwegian experts on human resource management. The sides will talk about the practical help to the armed forces of Ukraine on reforming and also the development of bilateral defense cooperation in military and military technological spheres. Besides, the top officials of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine these days will meet the delegation of the Ministry of Defense of Lithuania and will take part in the ceremony of transfer handed over to the armed forces of Ukraine of humanitarian help from the government of Canada in Odessa. Colonel General Viktor Mushenko, Chief of Staff, will hold a briefing for the military diplomatic corps, during which he will inform about the current military political situation in Ukraine and around Ukraine, and also about the situation and prospects of the armed forces of Ukraine. Also this week in Kiev, the commander of the Air Force of Ukraine will meet the Air Force attaché of the Indian embassy in Ukraine. Besides, the command of the Air Force will receive the American military delegation on the basis of one of the military units of the Air Command Center. Over the last week, the armed forces of Ukraine in the zone of anti-terrorist operation received 253 repaired units of arms and military machinery. The repair brigades of armed forces have restored 273 units of weapons and military machinery, including 7 tanks T-64, 5 infantry combat machines, BMP-1 and 8 BMP-2, 1 armored personnel carrier BTR-70, and so on. Besides, 207 lorries and cars have returned to the armed forces, including 53 Urals, 64 ZIL-131, and so on. So, over the period since the anti-terrorist operation started, 19,304 units of weaponry and military machinery was restored to the Ukrainian armed forces, including 638 units of rocket and artillery weaponry, 4,028 armored vehicles, and 13,126 lorries and jeeps. Out of this number, 18,136 were restored by the repair brigades of military units and the rest by the specialized brigades of state-owned enterprises. Besides, at the state defense enterprises, 189 units of aircraft was restored. The mobilization to the armed forces of Ukraine is going according to the plan, and 61,747 people were given summons by the 25th of January, which amounts to 71.7% from the planned number. At the moment, the work on the creation of a single register of people who are being drafted is going on. At the moment, this register includes those who try to avoid the mobilization, and the lists will be submitted to the Ministry of Interior and the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. At the moment, the military commissariats are summoning the mobilized people, and they are starting the work of medical commissions to evaluate the state of health and suitability for military service. As a result of medical checkup, they determine whether people are suitable for the military service. The Ministry of Defense has information about the fact that pro-Russian forces are preparing provocations in order to disrupt mobilization. They want to hold staged events and picketing the buildings of military commissariats, involving the mass media. So we address mass media with a request to be objective while covering these mobilization issues. On the 28th, on the 30th January, the active phase of mobilization process will take place, and we invite the mass media to cover these events. Within the Support Ukrainian Army appeal, the accounts of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has received almost 155 million hryvnia as help to the armed forces of Ukraine from legal entities and individuals. Out of this amount, almost 142 million hryvnia are money transfers for material and technical supply, and the rest for medical supply of the armed forces. Due to the calls to the single mobile number 565, starting from the beginning of 2015, 130,000 hryvnia were transferred to help the armed forces of Ukraine. In Transcarpathian region, out of the regional budget, the state regional administration has paid material help to 98 military servicemen to the total amount of 3.5 million hryvnia. And out of this sum, so now Vladyslav Seleznyov about the situation in the anti-terrorist operation zone, and we will get more detailed information from Leonid Matyukhin. So I have to tell you, the social and political situation, humanitarian situation in the zone of anti-terrorist operation remains tense because of the regular violation by the gunmen of the regime of silence. 115 shellings and firings was registered in the anti-terrorist operation zone. The gunmen have used 25 times the Grad multiple rocket launchers. They also use tanks and mortars while shelling the positions of the Ukrainian military. In Luhansk direction, 36 shellings took place in Donetsk, 26 in Debaltsevo bridgehead, 48 and 5 in Mariupol direction. As a result of shellings over the last 24 hours, 7 Ukrainian military were killed and several dozen were wounded. All the wounded were brought to medical hospitals where expert specialists are working with them. As of now, 309 military servicemen are in hospital. 19 of them are heavily wounded, and 148 Ukrainian military are in captivity. At the moment, the anti-terrorist operation forces are working, fulfilling their tasks on the territory of Donetsk and Luhansk regions according to the plan. And now Leonid Matyukhin, the spokesman for the anti-terrorist operation. Leonid Matyukhin, how was the last night? Over the night, the enemy continued to shell the positions of Ukrainian military. Most of the shellings took part in Luhansk direction, and in particular, the terrorists have 7 times shelled from artillery the village of Stanitsa Luhanska. Also, they shelled it from Grad, multiple rocket battery, and from tanks. The village of Verkhnya Olkhova was shelled and fired at 3 times by artillery, mortars, and small firearms. In Donetsk direction, they shelled from Grad multiple rocket batteries, Novomikhailivka, Opytna, and Tonenka. In the vicinity of Pervomaisk and Debaltsevo, they have twice shelled Popasna and Troitsky from Grad multiple rocket batteries, and also they shelled Ukrainian positions from mortars and artillery. From 7 to 7:30 p.m. in Mariupol direction, at 6:05 p.m. next to Mayorsk, the bandits tried to storm our positions from the direction of Horlivka. However, they got a worthy rebuff, and those who remained alive have retreated. Over next to Nikishino, the drone of the enemy was detected, and in general, the terrorists have fired against our military and peaceful residents 115 times. In Mariupol, the situation remained calm, no shellings overnight, but at the moment we are waiting for further details. Thank you very much, Leonid. Keep safe and talk to you tomorrow in the morning. Thank you, Victoria and Vladyslav. The next joint briefing of the spokespersons of anti-terrorist operation, the General Staff and the Ministry of Defense, tomorrow in the morning. And today at 12:30, we'll hear more on the situation in the anti-terrorist operation zone from Colonel Lysenko. Thank you.